As Kim said, my name is Jeff Clark, network engineer and technology consultant, or you can kind of sum it up all in one word and just say geek. And what we want to talk today about is really just kind of your mobile technology, some of the potentials and appreciating the potentials of kind of the world that we're living in now with mobile technology. 5 years ago, 6 years ago when the iPhone came out, and then subsequently the Android phones and iPads and all that stuff, if you think back to where we were, the opportunities have just, they've grown by leaps and bounds. The BlackBerry was the phone back in the day, and it could essentially do email and kind of a version of the web. And now with the devices that we hold in our hands, we're really honestly holding a miniature computer. So today, while there's kind of a world of possibilities that we could talk about, I really want to kind of focus on three things. Number one, just kind of getting to know and understand some of the capabilities of our devices, and that's just going to be real brief. We're also going to briefly talk about what I like to call files on the fly, or basically a way to be able to kind of use your smartphones, tablets, and your computer hand in hand so that there's kind of a seamless way of sharing files among those devices, because that seems to be something that I hear from a lot of people is a problem. Is how do I keep the Word documents that are in my computer up to date with the documents that I've got stored on my phone without emailing them to myself every 10 minutes. So we're going to talk briefly about that as well. And last thing is we're going to talk about some productivity apps, some things that I think, or one app in particular, and some things that interact with it. Something that for me at least, is one of the most valuable tools that that I have in my, I guess, tech arsenal. So what I wanted to do again is just kind of start by talking about the devices. And as I mentioned, it's kind of a world of possibilities in your pocket. And what these devices are really capable of is, if you think about it, it's more than just a phone anymore. It's a camera, it's an internet browser, it's a GPS, it's a document editor, essentially it's your personal digital assistant. You may remember back in the day when we had the Palm Pilot. This is all of those things, not to mention the movies and music and all that stuff. But because right now there are over 1 million apps in Apple's App Store and close to that in the Android marketplace, the problem is really just one of finding the right tool. Now I will confess at this point that as Kim mentioned, I'm more of a geek. I'm a tech guy, I'm a technology guy, but I did grow up in a construction family. So it actually kind of gives me a bit of a unique appreciation for your industry, mainly because I not only appreciate the technical abilities that are required for construction, or in this case, destruction, but I also understand the science, and I can appreciate the science and the technology behind what you do. And I can imagine if having the right tool for the right job in construction is important, it's even more so in the demolition industry. And so what I wanted to do is talk about some of the technical tools that can help you achieve that. Now, Kim, there was a survey that we started to put together. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that at the end?
Let's go ahead and do that now.
Okay.
I'll launch that.
Because what we want to do is we just kind of want to get a feel for what you're already possibly using. Are you using iPhones, Androids, iPads, Android tablets, or some other device that's similar to those? And let me see, am I able to see the live result here, Kim?
Not until I close it for you, so we'll close it in just 1 minute. Give it another second. Okay, let's go ahead and close it.
All right, now does it give us the results there live? Oh, there we go. Oh, wow, so it's actually predominantly Android phones at this point. Interesting. Few iPads. Nope, actually nothing else there. So it's predominantly Android and probably about, what's that, 37% of the whole poll being iPhones. Now, for the sake of this, I am dealing from an iPhone, which is my personal device here. However, I do have experience with the Androids, and what I'm going to be talking about, all the tools are going to be cross-platform. That means they can work with iPhones or they can work with Androids. And so the first thing I really wanted to kind of dive into, Kim, if I can go ahead and get the slideshow back on here. One of the first things I wanted to dive into is what we call files on the fly or file management. Some of these services you may already be familiar with, but I think these are worth touching on very briefly. And these are services that basically allow you to have a single folder on your desktop as well as a folder on your phone that are always in sync, meaning that whatever files you have in this folder on your computer are going to be the same files, the same version that you have on your phone. And probably the best way to show this to you would be to just kind of go ahead and show you. So let me go ahead and see if my phone's showing up here. Let me go ahead and minimize this. All right. So here we've got my phone over here. And I have an app on my phone called Box. Box is the service that we're going to talk about today, but all the other services, which Kim will provide at the end in a kind of a one-sheeter, they're all pretty much the same. You're not going to find a major difference between Box.com, Dropbox, or any of the others. But when I open up Box on my iPhone, I've got these 3 folders. Over here on my desktop, I've got this folder called, where did this go to? Oh, there it is. My Box files. I can rename that folder whatever I want. And you'll see that the same files that are in this folder also show up on my phone. Now the same thing is true, for example, let's say I've got this PDF document that I received from management, the competency survey that I need to make sure that anyone coming out to our projects, they fit within this survey. If I wanted to get this onto my phone, rather than emailing it to myself, because in some cases the documents are just a little bit too big, I can simply drag it down, and in this case I've got a folder set up specifically for NDA and a personal folder. So if you look over here, see the little check mark? That means that is now in sync. So if I come over here to my phone, over here, I'm just going to refresh it. Over here now I've got this competency survey showing up, and it's as simple as that. So Box.com, there's Dropbox, there's, what were the other ones we talked about in here? Google Drive, and Microsoft has one called Microsoft SkyDrive. All of those are about the same. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I did want to tell you about them because some of the other great features of, say, Box.com and Google Drive and Microsoft Share Drive, for example, or SkyDrive, for example, are the abilities to have specific folders that are shared with other individuals. So not only are those same files available on my 2 phones, but they are also available on the web. So here's my Box.com website here. When I go into the NDA folder, I'll have all the same stuff in there that I've put right onto my desktop, and that's always going to be in sync. But I also have the ability right from the web to say, for example, that I want to share this with other collaborators, which would be people who could add to this. So let's say that there's a project manager and he wants to share this with all the other individuals that are on the job site. You can set up a folder specifically for projects, drop stuff into that, and it would always be up to date. So, blueprints, any plans, any schematics, any documentation for that project could be shared with everyone that's involved in that project, and you simply invite them as collaborators. They'd sign in with their Box.com credentials, and everything on all phone or all devices, computers, smartphones, tablets, will be completely up to date. So that's kind of the files on the fly aspect of this. But what I'm really excited to show you about is one of the productivity apps that for me has absolutely just kind of been a game changer. It's changed the way that that I use my smartphone, and it's an app called Evernote. And what Evernote is Evernote is essentially a note-taking app. Now, our phones come with a built-in notes app. The built-in notes app on the iPhone, for example, is basically, it looks like just a little pad of paper. You can add a couple of things in there, but it's really pretty limited in its abilities, and I can really only take one type of note with it. I can write stuff into it, and that's it. But while we're out in the field or just kind of in life in general, there's a lot of other types of notes that we need to remember. Sometimes there are photos or maybe an audio recording from a meeting or a handwritten note that are all related to that. Possibly even say look at that, I got a phone call coming in. Possibly even a snapshot of receipts for the project, for expense reports, that kind of stuff. And this is one of the things that Evernote really can help you with. And so Evernote, the first thing that it does that it really is helpful is it allows you to create different notebooks. So, for example, I've got my NDA notebook in here. And when I go into the NDA notebook, I've got a safety manual, which I put in there. I've got some notes on Mount Ephraim Hospital, which is going to be a demo. Obviously making this stuff up, and you can see my incompetence in your industry here. I have personal notebooks for things that I'm interested in. You can essentially just create a bunch of different notebooks, maybe for projects or for specific parts of a project if you have different phases, that kind of thing. But what's great about these type of notes, is that, as I mentioned earlier, is that you can add any type of note. And right down here, you notice this little section that says take a quick note. In Evernote, I just click on that, take a quick note, and now if I wanted to, of course, I can write my simple little note. But I can also add attachments. So let's say I want to attach, for example, a photo of this project, and maybe I'm on site with someone from OSHA. One of the other things that you can do within these notes is you can add what are called tags, and tags essentially are kind of key words that when you want to go back and remember this note later on, you might want to add this tag as something that's easily searchable. So I might add a tag for OSHA. I also might want to put in here that this is for hospital demo. And any other tags you might want to put in there. But one of the other great things that Evernote does is it does what's called geolocating the photos that you took. So I can see exactly where I was when I took that photo on that project, meaning that another simple way for me to search for these notes is if I don't feel like going into the folders, I can actually look for any notes that I've taken in certain locations. So for example, I was on a trip a few months back in Louisville, Kentucky. While on that trip, I had to keep an expense report. And so for that expense report, I simply took photos of all my receipts. That meant that when I got back home and I needed to fill out that expense report, I could take a look at any of the photos that I had added from that specific location, making them really easy for me to find. That way I didn't have to add any keywords or anything like that. I could simply find them by location. And that works all the way down into the exact specifics of a location if you have multiple projects in the same general vicinity. So you can add photos, but one of the other things that you can do within those photos is you can do some photo markup. So if you're sitting there on the project with the guy from OSHA, and I'm not even sure what to use for an illustration of this since I don't know your industry very well. Let's say, for example, they're telling you one of the problems on this site is there are people. Can't knock down the building where we've got people in it. Probably a terrible demo, but you understand the point. So you can add specific notations. There are specific types of tag things that you can put on there. Some of these are great for you to just kind of as little reminders for yourself. And if you want to, notate something, give check marks, X's, that kind of stuff. These can then be saved, added to your folder. You can continue on with your notes from your meeting with the guy from OSHA. If you wanted to add any audio recordings, notice I click on the little attachment thing. I could click on the microphone. I won't do it now, but I could click on the microphone. We could record a part of the conversation. If the guy from OSHA gives me, say, a punch list of things that I need to make sure we take care of on this particular project, right over here, I've got this little box with the check marks. If I click that, it's going to let me start creating a list that's going to be check boxes. Don't let people be there. Or, whatever. And of course, this becomes then a checklist that I can go out and check off later on. You can create simple lists or, again, just standard notes as you go along. So Evernote is a great note-taking application, but what really makes Evernote nice is the ability to also share that information with others. So, after you've had your meeting with OSHA, say on the Mount Ephraim Hospital, and you want to share that information with someone else, down here, this little button here with the arrow allows me to send this out as an email or a text message, or of course you could post it to Facebook and Twitter. You can send that off to others within the organization that would need to do it, may need to see that information. Expense reports are a good example of that. Some of the other things, though, that really make Evernote useful is the ability to be able to find things. I mentioned those tags, but there are other things that sometimes we need to search. For example, one of the things that the NDA has is a really fairly lengthy safety manual that's a PDF. I can add PDFs to this by putting them into my box folder. Let me show you how I add something to this. Let's say I put it into my, my box folder on my computer, and I want to open something up into Evernote. I've got this little arrow next to that PDF, and I can say open in and Evernote. Now I've already gone ahead and added in your safety manual. But within that safety manual, there may be information that you need to find. Now I seem to have frozen on the screen here. There we go. Within that safety manual, you may want to look for information on asbestos rules. And you'll notice it brings up all the different PDF things. Let me see if turning this will make it a little easier for you to see. That doesn't appear to. Okay, there we go. And you can see that it's giving me kind of references in there based on the, based on where it is in that file. So I can see that it's in section 1, page 4. And if you look further down, you can even see that it kind of shows you, a kind of a reference. So you can kind of see the, what's the word I'm looking for? The context of the word asbestos being used. Makes it easier for you to find stuff that's kind of buried within larger documents. So that's the the search feature built into Evernote, and again for larger documents. But some of the other great things with Evernote is that it also works with other applications that are kind of third-party applications. One of the other great third-party applications that if you use a smartphone, you're familiar with the browsers on them. They've either got Chrome or Safari on an iPhone or a variety of different browsers. But one of the browsers that I really like because of its integration with Evernote is a browser called Dolphin. So Dolphin, it's just, again, it's a simple internet browser, the same as you have on, already built into your phone. But it has a unique feature in that it lets me add entire web pages and documents directly into Evernote. So, for example, I go to the resources section here of all right, so in the on the web page here, I've got this list of say toxic materials. If I wanted to add something from this down into my Evernote, it seems to be frozen here. If I wanted to add that entire document, I simply click on this button and share it with my own Evernote. In just a couple seconds, I've got that entire document added in here. So it's a good way, using the Dolphin browser, it's a good way for you to add any documents or entire web pages that are maybe not in PDF form to your Evernote for you to be able to reference later on. One of the last features we'll talk about, going back to Evernote here, is its ability to do something called OCR, or optical character recognition. As I mentioned, I like to use it for expense reports, for looking for receipts, but in Evernote, it doesn't necessarily just have to be written text that this can search for. It can also search for text that's taken from a photo. So you'll notice I've got the word Delaware River Port Authority here. If I were to go back to all of my notes and try to find that, of course it's not going to find it. Oh, there we go. Sure enough, just by searching for the word Delaware, it found it within the actual photo, meaning you can take pictures of entire documents. Evernote has a nice scan feature which takes the text from a piece of paper that you scan, makes it easier to read, and then makes it an entirely searchable document. So any contracts or anything like that that you have are really useful. The last application I really want to talk to you about was one that I think goes hand in hand with Evernote, and it also goes really well with Box.com, and it's an application called Sign Now. It's put up here in the top right corner. What Sign Now allows you to do is to go ahead and fill out things like PDF documents or signed documents that need to be signed. And so I've pulled up this pre-start engineering survey. I can tell it that I want to open this in the app Sign Now. It's going to bring up my entire PDF document here. I can just simply tap, insert some text, and we'll call the project name You're From Hospital. Check that off. I can move that to the right place. At the end of this whole thing, let's say there's a signature section. We could go through all of these if we wanted. Insert my signature. Now, one of the nice things that did remember my signature from the last time I did this, I can then put that signature into the correct field. When I'm done, I just check this that I'm done. I may want to change the name of it to say signed, and I can save it. If there are other parties involved that need to also sign, ask me for a survey. If there are other parties involved that may need to sign this, I can click on the document. I can invite others to sign that document. It's going to send it out to all the appropriate collaborators, and it's going to compile all the information with all the different signatures at the end. And more and more industries are allowing digital signatures as their standard signatures. So that's Sign Now, pretty straightforward, easy to use document signing and document filling application. Now, I do want to just kind of give a quick note that I am going to be at your upcoming convention here in Vegas, and I'm going to be basically kind of manning a booth there in which I'm going to give you kind of the opportunity to kind of sit down with me, tell me maybe some of the ways you'd like to start using your iPhones, Androids, tablets in your business. Get a chance to kind of ask maybe some apps that are specific to you that would be beneficial. And I'm going to be there for how many hours a day, Kim?
4 hours a day.
All right, so I'll be there for 4 hours a day, just there kind of manning a little booth there to answer any questions that you have about ways to use this technology better in your own businesses. So anyway, that's all I really wanted to show you today. Just wanted to go through those kind of those simple applications, kind of give you some ideas of some of the things that are really useful for business. We are including, after the presentation, kind of a little one-sheeter that has some other apps that I think are worth knowing about and that are worth possibly using in your business. And what I really encourage you to do, especially with apps like Evernote, is to give them a try and then force yourself to use them, because the first thing you're going to find when you use a new application is that it may not work exactly like the last one. If you're really used to the Notes application that's built into your phone, try dropping that for a couple of days. Try the Evernote out, because once you've used some of the more advanced tools like Evernote, it's going to really make a difference in the way that you are organized and the way that you manage your digital life. Kim, did you want to open it up to any questions at this point?
I do. If anybody has any questions, you can send them in. Jeff mentioned that we're going to have a mobile lounge at the expo, so if you're interested in learning more about some of these things as well, we'll be talking about some of the new features that we will be putting on the website. So that's just something to think about if you're thinking about coming to Vegas this year. We will be sending out this afterwards, so you will have all of the ones that were talked about today. Some of these other ones that we have here on the end are just sort of extras. They're really great if you want to research some of those. I think one of the things I would add about Evernote is my favorite thing to do on that is there's actually another app that works with it that allows me to take handwritten notes on my iPad, save them into Evernote, and Evernote makes them searchable. It can actually read my handwriting, which is a great tool for me if I'm in a meeting or I need to take notes. So like Jeff said, just try them out, use them. It's one of those things where I had to force myself to use Evernote for a while to get used to it. There are others. This is honestly the most functional for me. And I don't see any questions. So we will go ahead and end today, and we will be posting this online. There is a short survey at the end just asking how useful this information was for you, and also if there were any other topics that you might be interested. I encourage you to answer that if you could to help us as we start planning for some more. So thank you again, Jeff, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.